Hi folks, so a quick recap before we dive into the contents of this video. So 2 videos ago, I did the weekly overview, which covers the primary transits of this particular week that we're in, the week of April the 29th. I also discussed and gave you an overview with regard to where we are at now that we have come through the eclipses and Mercury retrograde, with a reminder that the Mercury shadow period it continues through May the 13th, and by that I mean the degrees that Mercury, since about March the 18th, has gone over 3 times in the sign of Aries. First direct, then retrograde April 1st to 25th, then April 25th to May the 13th, 3 times over the same 15 odd degrees, 14 odd degrees, 13 odd degrees. And the fact that the primary aspect that Mercury made during the time was a conjunction to Chiron, and the third and final conjunction to Chiron is on May the 6th, which hopefully, as we head to that, which technically falls next week, will allow us to wrap up some of the themes associated with the Mercury retrograde. I can feel myself start to expand on these themes. It's the weekly overview plus, welcome to the first day of the rest of our lives kind of video that I did 2 videos ago. Now that we are actually out of this transformational vortex of the eclipses and Mercury retrograde, and also the big aspect of 2024, which was the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in Taurus on April the 20th, I started to yesterday take a look at the signs that still have slower moving planets and significant astrology for the rest of the year that we've been discussing since January. Specifically, yesterday I looked ahead, sort of a bird's eye view of the next 12 odd months, and we looked at the sign of Capricorn, where we have 2 full moons coming up and Pluto retrograding into Capricorn to finish up its transit and transformation that it began in 2008 by November of 2024. Today, I'm going to look at the next sign, the sign of Aquarius, and then the next few videos successively will go over the signs of Pisces, Aries, and Taurus. Hopefully, the Taurus video will be completed before the new moon in Taurus on May the 7th. As we've been discussing through the eclipses and Mercury retrograde, it's really moving forward time now, and the energy becomes even clearer with regard to moving forward with the new moon in Taurus, which is conjuncting Uranus on May the 7th, and synchronistically, the last major aspect related to Mercury retrograde, conjuncting Chiron for the 3rd time in Aries, occurs the day before, on May the 6th. Now, the sign of Aquarius is hosting Pluto, and Pluto is going to be in Aquarius till 2043 for another 19 years. Briefly, this year, between September and November, it will go back to Capricorn. Pluto and the Sun. Pluto was in the sign of Aquarius briefly last year as well. Give me 1 sec, let me give you those dates. Pluto was in Aquarius from March 23rd, 2023 to June 10th, 2023. So briefly during that time, it had also entered Aquarius. Interesting. And this year, spending most of the year in Aquarius. Significantly, this year's entry into Aquarius was dramatic and somehow more meaningful. And I think that by the time we get to 2043 and look back at this Pluto transit through Aquarius, we'll probably look to 2024 as the year that truly kicked things off. And specifically, the Sun and Pluto conjuncted in Capricorn, but then on the 20th of January, they came in hand into the sign of Aquarius. And after that, Mercury on February the 5th, Mars, I think, on February the 14th, and then Venus on February the 17th, all conjuncted Pluto in Aquarius, followed by a few days later, the Mars-Venus conjunction in Aquarius. The Mars Pluto conjunction in Aquarius around February the 14th, February the 15th, somewhere around there, February 14th, 15th, 16th, is what I equate as the transit that kind of blew open 2024 for us. And at the end of the day, as I've said to you, you can't look at transits in isolation. The fact that that transit occurred as Jupiter and Uranus, really the transformational energies of the first half of 2024, are all geared around and orbiting around the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in Taurus. So all these significant aspects that have come up can't be looked at without factoring that in. In general, the general narrative that we continue to follow, eclipses are the most important transit aspect that are occurring at any given time. And we go back to April the 19th of last year. As I mentioned, by the time we got to Venus and Mars getting ready to conjunct in Leo, July, August, we may have had a sense of what direction, where it is that we've wanted to go, sort of mounting, growing since April 19th of last year. Then in the second half of last year, we ran into a series of obstacles. Venus went retrograde in Leo, and then Mercury went retrograde in Virgo, and then we started to have the eclipses of release in Libra, October the 14th to March the 25th. But in February of 2024, the gates opened again so that we could start to move forward. But it was followed by a period of, as we were entering from the middle of March till about recently, entering a period of looking to spirit, partnering with spirit, getting clarity, realigning with goals, rechecking to see which doors would remain open and closed, what would accelerate, what would not, and what direction we would all start to walk through and into, where we picked up in the videos, in the time or the past few days after April 28th, 27th, 28th, where middle of March, we entered the period where we had the eclipses on March 24th and April the 8th. And of course, we had Mercury retrograde from April the 1st to 25th. So whatever direction we wanted to go in, but were thwarted in the second half of 2023, picked up again the middle of February 2024, with a period since then of pausing to ensure that we were really, now that the gates were really open, we were really on the right track, really moving in the directions that we wanted to move in. What would they look like? Were we still aligned with our goals? How would things occur? How would things accelerate? Let's just say that if the first eclipse in Aries on April the 19th of last year kind of shot us out of the cannon, and we were more impulsive, this time around, we're in a place where we may very well be, and I think we likely are going to remain committed to that direction that we were interested in moving towards in 2023, but are likely to be in a place where we are taking into account just how we're going to make that transition. And both the eclipses opening and closing doors for us, and Mercury retrograde making things clearer, ironically, given Mercury's reputation during retrograde to make things hazier. But as I've said to you, for me, Mercury retrograde always makes things visible to us, those things that are in our blind spot and those things that we intuitively have a feeling that we've got going on, but we've been ignoring. Sort of the Mercury retrograde kind of brings it a little bit more front and center for us. And with all that factored in and all that said, we come to April 27th, 28th, ready to move forward, more decisive, I would imagine, clear about the direction we want to move forward in, and ready to get on the horse. And as I covered yesterday, we have about 3 months of forward movement that we can now invest in and move, and especially after the new moon in Taurus, May the 7th, which conjuncts Uranus, with Jupiter conjuncted on April the 21st, we are ready to go. The Aquarius part of the chart and Pluto's entry into Aquarius and the personal planets conjuncting Pluto in February were, of course, part of this narrative. The Aquarius part of the chart does not have some of the flashier astrology that the Capricorn part of the chart has as we look ahead over the next 12 months. Capricorn remains flashy because of its two full moons, the fact that we just in the middle of April ended the Mercury cycle in Capricorn and started the Mercury cycle in Aries, which I will discuss when I do my Aries looking ahead video a couple of videos from now. And the Aquarius part of the chart, apart from hosting Pluto, which frankly is enough, kind of has its full moon coming up in, gosh, is it July? No, it's August, right? That when normally the full moon in Aquarius comes up on August the 19th. It's going to be opposite Mercury retrograde. Mercury will be retrograde in the month of August, which I went over in yesterday's video as I looked ahead generally, bird's eye view over the next 12 months. And outside of that, there's the rest of the astrology is relatively benign. Here are the things that keep the conversation going and active, though. The first year that Pluto enters, and I know that technically the first year was last year, between March and June, as we mentioned, but it's really this year, I think, that we're going to be feeling, as I said, it has to do again with the astrology of the Sun and Pluto entering the way they entered, and those conjunctions and the timing of it, given the fact that it was all occurring roughly a month before the eclipses and 2 months before the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. The next big transit of 2024, aspect of 2024, is Jupiter trining Pluto on June the 2nd of this year. Jupiter finishes its 13-odd month cycle in Taurus on May the 25th of 2024, enters Gemini. The Gemini entrances are almost as dramatic as the entrances into Aquarius. The Sun enters, I think, on the 20th. Jupiter enters on the 25th. Within a couple of weeks, the Sun, Jupiter, Venus, and Mercury all enter Gemini. And on May the 23rd, the day of the Sagittarius full moon, you've got that full moon in Sagittarius opposing, for all intents and purposes, the Sun, of course, which is what makes it a full moon, but also Jupiter and Venus coming in close together. And then Jupiter trines Pluto. For all intents and purposes, meant to be a positive, supportive aspect of transformation. What is Jupiter ending and what is Jupiter beginning in the Gemini part of the chart? Closing out a 12, 13-year cycle, starting a 12, 13-year cycle in the Gemini part of the chart between May 25th of this year and July of 2025. And Jupiter's entrance into Gemini to start this process starts off with a dramatic, favorable, transformative, harmonious trine to Pluto, who is inaugurating its 19-year journey of transformation for our benefit in the sign of Aquarius. What endings and new beginnings in the Gemini part of the chart are necessary for Pluto to transform the Aquarius part of the chart? And the significance of the Aquarius part of our chart, and remember when I say the Aquarius part of our chart, I'm talking about the house occupied by the sign of Aquarius, which, if you are an Aries rising, it is going to be the 11th house for you. If you're Taurus rising, it'll be the 10th house. If you're Gemini rising, it'll be the 9th house. If you are Cancer rising, it'll be the 8th house. If you are Leo rising, it will be the 7th house. If you are Virgo rising, the 6th house. If you are Libra rising, the 5th house. Scorpio rising, the 4th house. Sag rising, Sagittarius rising, the 3rd house. Capricorn rising, the 2nd house. Aquarius rising, the 1st house. Pisces rising, the 12th house for you. So the Aquarius part of the chart that is going to be seeing a slow, steady transformation, which the year that is important for that, you will, I think, be able to look back at 2024 down the line as Pluto continues to make these transits and say, that is the year when things shifted for this transformation to really begin. And the big transit related to Aquarius, of course, is the one on June the 2nd with Jupiter trining Pluto. But the personal planets, the Sun, Mercury, Venus, even Mars, are going to start their normal annual process of, as they go through the various other signs and houses, squaring and trining Pluto in Aquarius. So while the Aquarius part of our chart is not hosting flashy astrology for the remainder of the year, it remains very much part of the conversation. And this video really does need to be seen in partnership with the video I did yesterday in the Capricorn part of the chart, because ultimately what Pluto is doing this year is wrapping up. Pluto goes retrograde on May the 3rd. This week, Pluto is stationary right now, goes retrograde. From May the 3rd to September the 2nd of this year, it's going over the degrees that it went over between January 20th and May the 3rd in Aquarius. And Pluto does this, it works the degrees that it's going to go over. For, in this case, in the sign of Aquarius, 19 years. Because of the nature of Pluto's orbit, which is, I think, the least circular of all the orbits, it spends a different amount of time in each sign and therefore in each house. 2008 to 24, is about a 16-year cycle as opposed to a 19-20-year cycle that we're seeing in the sign of Aquarius, for example. So as the planets have started to move, for example, this is why the astrology of Aquarius for the remainder of this year needs to continue to be factored in. Basically, it's my way of saying we can't count Pluto out. Ultimately, there are the only slow-moving planet in Capricorn and Aquarius this year is going to be Pluto. And Pluto's transformation and finishing up the transformation in Capricorn takes priority for me so that you can finish up whatever Pluto has been transforming in the Capricorn part of the chart since 2008. And you can look to my yesterday's video on this. There are other videos where I've covered this. There's a whole sort of Pluto's transit through Capricorn video as well. If you search for it, you'll find it. And I think that is necessary and important so that we're really able to cooperate with Pluto and transform the Capricorn part of the chart. And in yesterday's video, I mentioned if your rising sign is this, then it's this house that I'm referring to, where Pluto, that Capricorn occupies in your chart. So you can look to yesterday's video for that. That takes priority only because what I don't want to have happen for any of us is that we don't completely transform with that change, and Pluto, notoriously on its way out, kind of forces the situation by creating the transformation in a more dramatic way. As I said to you, I have Pluto going over my 6th house. That's where Capricorn sits. And I can see and tell what transformations Pluto has been making for me, both in terms of my job and my health. And I think it behooves me, because those transformations are positive and more aligned with who I am and in my best interest, to cooperate with and complete that transformation. Pluto, in this regard, is a forgiving planet insofar as it takes forever for us to change our lifestyles and our habits. And Pluto works with us slowly and gradually and slowly and gradually. But if transformations are not occurring and if we're not getting a message, Pluto is fully capable of either wresting things from us or, for example, in the case of health, landing us with a symptom or an issue that's going to demand that those transformations that it is asking for get made. So wrapping up the Pluto cycle in Capricorn takes priority for me over Pluto's entry into and stay in Aquarius for most of the year, but it's the Aquarius transit that we're going to feel most dynamically with regard to the seeds we're planting for the future. And this has already started, right? So if the Pisces part of our chart is the one where we are stabilizing the crisis that has been increasing since 2012 and may have peaked for many of us around 2016, if the Aries and the Taurus part of the chart is where our future is beckoning to us the most, with Aries hosting the North Node eclipses and Jupiter and Uranus still transiting the sign of Taurus, that is where we're seeing the most dramatic and urgent astrological activity, and certainly have over the past couple of months. But we may have sensed Pluto's presence the most so far this year between January 20th and February 20th. But even now, with the Sun entering Taurus, Venus entering Taurus, Mercury, and then Mars entering Taurus, and then shortly after that, by the end of May, these planets, along with Jupiter entering Gemini, entering Taurus, they square Pluto. Entering Gemini, they trine Pluto. The squares occurring right now, Venus square Pluto occurs tomorrow. The Sun squaring Pluto would have brought with it an awareness of what needs to occur in the Taurus part of the chart. It would have made something visible in the Taurus part of the chart that we then, give me 1 second. I just want to, that we would need to start to address in order to allow Pluto to create its transformation in the Aquarius part of the chart. With Venus, we may well be contemplating and taking actions that are relationship or financially oriented, that could seem lucky or a lucky break. Venus going through Taurus over the next 3 weeks or so is going to accelerate and present opportunities for us that we can then communicate about once Mercury comes in, act on once the new moon occurs on May the 7th, and once Mars comes in, really take action behind and kind of defend boundaries around and concretize. By the way, Venus enters Taurus today and Mars enters Aries tomorrow. Again, all of this has been covered briefly, and we'll cover it more when we get to these particular signs in a few days' time. We don't have that many signs to discuss. But from the Aquarius perspective, Sun squared Pluto on April the 21st, Venus squares Pluto actually on May the 1st. Well, it's tomorrow, Pacific US time. So either tomorrow, April the 30th, or May the 1st. Mercury squares Pluto in the middle of May, May the 17th, and then Mars squares Pluto on June the 11th. It's the Mars square Pluto that is the most dramatic of these. So with Venus squaring Pluto, some sort of Venusian action, artistic, creative, relationship oriented, financially oriented, some opportunity to capitalize on. With the square, there's a need for urgent action on the part of the faster moving planet to act in alignment in such a way that the slower moving planet, in this case Pluto, can continue its transformation. By the time we get to Mercury, it may be time for communications and agreements. By the time we get to Mars, the pursuit of goals and the defense of boundaries. But, squares to Pluto always have this kind of threatening quality. As I've mentioned to you, the square with Pluto happens, and within a month now, even before we've got Mars squaring Pluto, you're going to have the Sun trining Pluto on May the 22nd, the day before the Sagittarius full moon, which will be sextiling. Well, let me not confuse issues. May the 22nd, Sun trines Pluto. May the 25th, Venus trines Pluto. June the 2nd, Jupiter trines Pluto. June the 4th, Mercury trines Pluto. And July the 21st, Mars trines Pluto. So the conversations continue. Stressful, action-demanding, action-oriented squares, leading us to capitalizing harmonious trines to Pluto that we shouldn't lose sight of and should continue to take advantage of. And certainly on this channel, I'll keep letting you know when they occur. As the personal planets then move into the sign of Cancer, they will oppose Pluto, and they will need to take some action to support this transformation in the Aquarius part of the chart. By the time the personal planets start moving into Virgo, and we have, the Mercury retrograde in August, they are going to start the process of trining Pluto again, partly in Aquarius, but predominantly by that time in September, Pluto will have moved into Capricorn. And then, of course, as they move into the sign of Libra, they'll square Pluto and then get ready to, conjunct with Pluto in Aquarius next year. So the conversation, the drumbeat of Pluto continues as it does every year. Every year planets will conjunct Pluto, square Pluto, trine Pluto, oppose Pluto, and so on. And we've survived every year. The important thing to be aware of is that 2024 is a more dramatic year of Pluto, given the way Pluto entered, given the fact into Aquarius 2024. I mean, Pluto started the process of changing signs last year. And sure, in that regard, a lot of the seeds of change that we're acting on this year and concretizing this year, and will continue to concretize next year, as I made clear in yesterday's video as we looked ahead bird's eye view of the next 12 months, go back to 2023. Fair enough. But I think we'll have an easier time identifying Pluto's transformation looking at 2024. 2024 is the year when it wraps up and completes its Capricorn transformation, and really in earnest and somewhat dramatically between January 20th and February the 20th, for all intents and purposes, really made its presence in Aquarius felt. And it is the year when it has that Jupiter trine. The personal planets do what they do with Pluto every year. The Sun, Mercury, Venus, Mars. Fine. The Mars, given the transformational nature of Pluto and the assertiveness of Mars, those are the transits that are the most potent energetically. So Mars does square Pluto, June the 11th, and then, July the 21st trines Pluto. And I don't know, honestly, it's going to be next year, because by the time Mars comes into Leo, it's going to go retrograde and direct. So the rest of Mars's transits or aspects to Pluto after it opposes Pluto as it's going through Cancer. Give me 1 sec. Let me get a sense of that, so I'm not just dabbling. It's fascinating. Mars enters Gemini July 20th, trines Pluto. Mars enters Cancer September 4th. So around that time, actually later, because then Mars enters Leo on November the 4th. Somewhere during there, it will oppose Pluto as it enters into Leo. And then it's going to go retrograde on December the 6th. And retrograde into Cancer. It may well be, wow, with that Mars retrograde, it is going to oppose Pluto 3 times. Now that Mars retrograde in Pluto is starting to make more sense to me in terms of archetypally what it might end up standing for. Anyway, sorry for that digression. As astrologers, as as the import of these aspects continues to land and filter through into our astrologer brains. I'm going to look into that more and develop that. While a lot of the aspects that we're dealing with this year, including, we're having these squares to Pluto right now. We're going to have the squares to Pluto again as these planets move into Libra. And it's part of sort of an annual set of transits. This year, they just are building on something much more dramatic and meaningful between January 20th and February 20th. It's the year when the match is being lit. Or if the match was lit in 2023, it's the year when the match is actually being thrown into the fireplace so that it can take hold. That's probably a better analogy. So we're going to feel it more. We're going to feel the flames rise up more. And with Pluto, that kind of flame analogy, if there's one particular astrologer who, kind of talked about the Pluto transit as kind of the analogy of the barn burning down so you can see the moon. I think it's better to think of Pluto's slow-moving transformations as essential and necessary and in our best interest, with power struggles occurring, as I mentioned yesterday, only if we are too attached to something that is not in our best interest and not part of our destiny and forward movement, or if somebody else, some other entity, some other party, some other person is holding us in a particular place that is not allowing for that transformation. That is when this theme of power struggles with Pluto really start to make themselves felt. And sure, with these squares, but then the squares are followed by trines. So how much emotional energy are we going to spend on being frightened about squares to Pluto when a month later we are dealing with trines and transformations? So just know what is up. We talked about the fact that in the sign of Capricorn, we've got the 2 full moons coming up, and we've got Pluto coming in to wrap things up on the heels of the Mercury cycle in Capricorn in the beginning of this year through April the 11th. In the Aquarius part of the chart, I'm going to leave you with the notion that this is the year when we really start to feel Pluto's transformation in the Aquarius part of the chart, and these squares and trines, but particularly, part of the reason why these squares that are occurring now and the trines are important is because they are leading us to Jupiter's trine with Pluto on June the 2nd. And Pluto will still be in Aquarius at that time. And it may not be completely or entirely clear to us right now what Jupiter entering its 12th, ending a 12-13-year cycle and starting a 12-13-year cycle in the sign of Gemini, the house occupied by Gemini in your chart, what that's going to have to do with helping or assisting Pluto continue its transformation in the sign of Aquarius. But I would hazard to say that as we get through these squares and take the action in the Taurus part of the chart to support Pluto's transformation in Aquarius, as we head towards the Sun and Venus and Mercury and Jupiter trining Pluto about a month and a half from now, it will start to come together and piece together. That at the very top of Jupiter's transformation or ending a 12-13-year cycle and creating an auspicious new beginning in the Gemini part of our chart between May the 25th to July of next year, it harmoniously aligned with Pluto in Aquarius. So while outside of that particular aspect, the other aspects are, we deal with them every year multiple times or once every couple of years. That and the fact that when Mars is retrograde at the end of this year and beginning of next year, it may well be opposing Pluto 3 times as part of its retrograde. Those are aspects that we can look to. We can't completely just say, oh, Pluto and its transformation, as we will starting next year, once the Mars oppositions are completed. We can't just relegate it to sort of the normal Plutonian transformation in 2024 we're going to have to give Pluto his due. We're going to have to look at these aspects as part of a narrative more intently and more seriously, because of this kind of inaugural quality and wrapping up quality that Pluto has, inaugural in Aquarius and wrapping up in Capricorn. Okay, I will leave it at that. Hey, look, a video that is less than an hour long. The next video will focus on the sign of Pisces as we look ahead in it for the rest of this year and after. Why am I doing these annual looking ahead videos? Because, as I mentioned to you yesterday, now that we're out of the eclipses in Mercury retrograde and getting on our horses and moving forward, I would like us, and keeping in mind that till Thanksgiving, with the exception of August, it is forward movement time. And indeed, we may all be feeling productive and ready to move forward. We may still be gathering our energy a little bit, especially till about May the 6th, May the 7th, the Taurus new moon on May the 7th. But we're moving. We might be feeling impatient enough to get on that horse and be galloping forward, and we may be already taking actions to allow us to do so. I think as we do it, it's helpful for us to also just have a sense of what is ahead, what is coming up, what role do these squares to Pluto make, what role are the trines to Pluto going to make, how do we keep factoring in this conversation with and cooperating with Pluto in Aquarius and Capricorn this year, as we move forward, take action, and observe what the astrological energies of the year demand from us and the opportunities that they provide to us. All right. If you found this video useful, feel free to share, tell your friends about it, get the word out if you think someone's going to benefit from this. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel and click on the bell icon next to the subscribe button. If you hover on that bell icon, there's a wiggly bell on top. If you click on that, you'll be notified whenever I do new videos. If you are seeing these videos either from Twitter or on Facebook, please do subscribe to my YouTube channel, because over the next couple of months, I'm going to phase out of posting these videos on those platforms. Certainly on Facebook. I kind of want to reclaim my Facebook page for whatever it is, or it's going to end up being. And there's a thanks button. So if you want to use that to donate to the channel, you're welcome to. You don't have to, but you're welcome to. It's there. And if you are interested in me taking a look at your birth chart and providing you with a personal reading, my email address is in the description box below. You can use that to email me and inquire about rates, and I can get you that information. I think that's it for now. Thanks for listening to this video. Out of all anyway, I'm not gonna prioritize which videos are important and not important. But if you want a sense of the energy of the time right now, then look to the weekly overview I did 2 videos ago. Since yesterday, these are much more sort of broader annual looks ahead and orientating videos, all of which remain applicable. These are all currently applicable. None of the signs that I'm covering are hibernating or sleeping currently. You can make that argument with Capricorn yesterday that they won't get activated till the full moon on June the 21st and July the 20th or thereabouts, but it's already April the 29th. We're already in May. And talking about Pluto, the second Capricorn full moon on, what is it, July the 21st? July the 21st is conjunct Pluto. And at that point in time, Mars will be getting ready to trine Pluto. So, can't. As someone who is sort of guiding this channel and providing astrological information on this channel, I feel like I'm pretty clear about my own compass as I'm doing these particular videos. And I think that we'll be able to refer back to them, but also for those of us who are looking at our charts and looking at the energies moving forward, we'll have a sense of what we need to tune into. Right now, the question is, what action needs to be taken in the sign of Taurus to support Pluto's transformation in the Aquarius part of our charts. All right, I will leave it at that. More to follow.